Welcome to Not Just Money with your hosts, Doretta and Lee. This isn't your typical podcast about finances. It's a podcast about all the money conversations we aren't having, sometimes not even with ourselves. Join us on this journey of hard truths, lived experience, and the wisdom that comes from both. Because money is never just about money.
Hey Lee, it's time for our savings hacks episode. Are you excited?
Yes, but I don't think I'm as excited as you are. You've been waiting to do this episode for months.
I thought you were the self-proclaimed queen of savings hacks.
Okay, not the queen, maybe the master. I mean, no one loves a deal more than I do. But I have my frivolous side, and that dollar cost isn't my only measurement.
Well, it shouldn't be. I mean, I like to think in terms of maximum joy or maximum utility for every dollar spent.
Ex-
See, I should have been an economist.
exactly. Like we all work hard for our money, and I'm a firm believer of squeezing every bit of juice from the way we spend it. And that means getting the most value.
I've got to say that you have taught me a thing or two about the joyous spend, like happy hours. The happy hours that include great food. Do you know, before I worked with you, I had actually never been to a happy hour in my entire life.
Seriously? For some reason, that sounds really sad that you've never been to a happy hour?
You gotta remember, I got married when I was a teenager, halfway through my undergraduate degree. I was never young, single, and employed in my whole
I
life.
mean, that's fair. And we have done some great happy hours, like our trips to the West Coast,
Okay, before we really get into talking about savings hacks, I want to go back and say something about saving. Remember way back to our first
which
podcast?
is crazy. That was 10 weeks ago. This is our 11th episode. It's bananas.
Yep, it really is. Well, that first episode, if you'll remember, was on saving. And we started there for a really good reason. And what we were talking about then was saving in the sense of money you do not spend, money you put to work to invest for your future.
Yeah, as I recall, we made that pretty clear that buying a $200 sweater on sale for $100 is not saving $100. It's still spending $100.
Exactly. And if you are starting your savings journey, I really encourage you to go back and listen to that first episode. But what we're talking about here is saving in a different sense. We're talking about getting that $200 sweater, if it's genuinely a $200 sweater, which is debatable, at the best possible price. So for $100, if that sweater is truly something you need or want.
Whoa, whoa, nope. That is firmly a want. I am sorry, nobody needs a $100 sweater. Was it made by the Tears of Ems?
It works. Okay. We're talking about getting the maximum value for the money that you do spend. And we're calling it savings hacks because that's what people call stretching your dollars these
And I
days.
know it. You hate that word, hacks. We had a whole debate about it.
Well, look, hate's a strong word. I just think it's really overused and really misused. I mean, hacks should be shortcuts, unexpected, different ways of doing things that are easier or better. It's what we were used to refer to in the good old days as tips and tricks. At least that's what I thought it meant. But when I was preparing for this episode, I spent time bopping around social media looking at so-called savings
Never a good
hacks
idea.
and
Don't
or
don't
just
bop.
hacks.
Don't bop. Don't bop on social media. Just don't.
Yeah, well, a lot of the hacks are are pretty stupid, and some of them are downright dangerous, and I'm like, "Why would you do that?"
Yeah, I think most of it is what you would call clickbait. I mean, things that really should have some sort of warning that says, please don't try this at home unless you wish to lose an eye.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think there are a whole bunch of other ones that really made me scratch my head, and I'm like, "That's not a hack. That's exactly how you're supposed to use that thing."
Okay, you definitely need to send me a list after this recording because I'm mildly curious about these videos now. But Honestly, I hate to say it, but sometimes I think people genuinely believe in some of this nonsense. Like maybe these are people who really didn't know that's how something worked. I mean, we don't know what we don't know. Although it does make me worry for the state of humanity when this content gets a lot of views.
Well, that point, we don't know what we don't know, is fair. And maybe it should even be a caveat for this episode. We're going to go through a lot of ideas for stretching your dollars, refining your purchases to make better choices, and spending as little as possible for what you do buy.
It's like finding the deals.
We're avoiding ones that aren't really deals. So, listen, for our listeners, you will probably be familiar with some of these ideas, but hopefully you'll pick up some new ones because you don't know what you don't know or things you've never thought of. I think the point is that some of them may represent significant savings, some are little savings, but it's about growing and maintaining that saving muscle because a dollar saved is the same as a dollar earned.
So how do you want to do this? We can't just spend the next 30 minutes tossing random ways we cut back on costs. Or can we?
Good. But I was thinking it was I was thinking that it might make a little more sense if we approached it in buckets. Maybe starting with needs, moving to wants, and point out opportunities to save. I did some digging around on social media. I even asked ChatGPT how people were saving money. And I looked at also the spending that people regret the most, where they figure they wasted the most money.
Yeah, let me guess. Food, transportation, clothes, technology.
It's a really good guess. And add in household expenses
Yeah.
and hobbies and entertainment.
Okay, let's do this. Okay, wait, I'll just add a bit of nuance. Remember that the place where you can save the most money is probably the place where you are spending the most money, particularly with discretionary spending. And I know that sounds really strange, but sometimes you have to say things out loud for it to be true. And also remember that small savings add up. So make all your dollars count.
Those are really two really important observations. And it points to the importance of knowing where your dollars are going now. So for our listeners, if you've taken our advice to track your spending for a month, you know where those dollars are going. Okay, let's start with food because that's where I've found most people have both the most regrets and where they have found the most ways to save money. And I'd say from my digging around a bit, the regrets seem to be mostly around restaurants and food delivery. Uber Eats and skip the dishes habits that have outlived the pandemic. There are lots of people admitting to spending hundreds of dollars a month on this, and they find savings by planning, eating at home, taking lunches to work, stuff like that. The thing is, though, rising grocery prices, though, they really matter. According to StatsCan, food prices are up an average of 4.7 year over year. And over the last year, just so that, we're recognizing the reality out there, beef is up 17%. Coffee is up, are you ready for this? 27%.
How are we going to survive?
I don't know.
We are both fueled by coffee.
I know. And the prices are projected to go up another 4 to 6% in 2026.
I don't even know if we can store that stuff for that long. Like when you bulk buy, but that's insane. And we all have to eat, or in my case, drink a lot of coffee. But I mean, it's easy to see how that delivery trap happens, right? Like when you're busy and tired, the takeaway temptation is huge. Work, kids, commuting, they all suck time and energy. And ordering in can become a default really easily. But the stark truth and the reality is, despite rising grocery costs, which is obscene, ordering in and eating out will still cost more. And I think
And a lot more.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is people just don't cook these days.
Or honestly, they don't know how. If you're on the eat out delivery treadmill, I would say the single most important thing you can do is learn to cook. It shocks me how many people insist that they can't boil water. And I'm telling you, I'm calling you
They
out.
have a kettle.
If you can.
It's called what?
Yeah.
Like you press on and it does its thing.
Exactly. If you can read, you can cook. If you can search YouTube, you can cook. You just don't want to cook. Let's be honest here. True story. I started teaching myself how to cook when I was about 11 or 12. I was a latchkey kid and I was responsible for prepping veggies for dinner. And I just kind of took it from there, from peeling potatoes and carrots and stuff. And I started with my mother's only cookbook, because my mother was not a very good cook, which was this big green thing from about 1950. And seriously, basic cooking is not rocket science.
I never really thought about it that way. I guess it's because I don't actually remember when I started to cook. I mean, when I lived alone, I didn't have a choice because there was a period where I was single and not married as a teenager. And I was way too cheap to go and buy pre-made stuff. But I was also this weird, and as I think back, weird young adult. Because when I made dinner for myself, I was convinced that I had to do rice, one meat dish, and two veggie dishes. I, to this day, cannot explain this why. But I think I was really good at watching my mom cook, and I retained that as time went on. And as you know, I am now my family's preeminent dumpling expert, eating as well as making.
I've made dumplings with you. I can attest to their awesomeness. But to be clear, we're not talking about gourmet cooking, the fancy meals that take hours to prepare and use every dish you own. What we're talking about is mastering a handful of really basic recipes that go together quickly when you're tired, that are fast and nutritious. I personally think everybody should have 5 basic recipes to make regularly. And bonus points if it's something you can make in bulk for leftovers. I'm huge on leftovers. You get to bring them for lunch the next day, or you have another meal ready that you either frozen or you warm up the next day. I just think that it saves so much time and money. What do you think, Lee?
Agreed. Let's do 5 basic recipes. I think that's a really good place to start. I do think it's important to note that food is cultural and I think very much tied to our childhoods. So I'm betting you and I have very different lists.
That'll be fun.
Okay, so where would you start?
Eggs. Easy, fast, excellent source of high quality protein, and a great budget stretcher. When my husband were poor students, Thursday night was breakfast for dinner night. We had eggs. And right now, my favorite, I need to eat something right now meal at home is toast with sliced avocado and an egg on top. Had it for lunch today. I always have hard-boiled eggs in my fridge. And one thing I really like about eggs is they give you a lot of room to expand your expertise. I mean, start with scrambled eggs on toast, and before you know it, you can have friends to brunch and present a perfect souffle. And trust me, souffles are seriously impressive. They are a lot easier than people think. What's your number 1, Lee?
Jeez, you went from eggs to souffle in one breath. So much for simple. My number 1, super easy, rice, preferably in a rice cooker, but stovetop will also do.
I've never had a rice cooker, and I cook a lot of rice. Is it really easier or better?
Yeah, I mean, some of them nowadays are not that expensive, and if you get some of the more expensive ones, it does so many things. Like, it cooks all the types of rice, right? So from your plain white to brown to wild, it will make you porridge or congee. The other day, my mom cooked a whole chicken in the rice cooker because apparently you can do that. So I think it's a pretty versatile tool, but if you want to spend $20, you can buy a really simple, it has an on and off, and it cooks perfectly soft rice in like 20 minutes or less.
Okay. Still not going to get one. Don't have the shelf space, but okay.
I mean, I eat a lot of rice, right? But okay, what's your second?
My second one would be a roast chicken. Really easy to do. And I would do this even as a single person because A, I love chicken, and B, it would give me enough meat for the week. Sandwiches, stir fries with pasta, curries, whatever.
No, just no. Roasting a chicken is hard.
What do you?
No. Roasting a chicken is hard. For anybody who's listening, be like, oh, yeah, like I'm going to start with roasting a chicken. Hard pass. Like, actually, when I do it, it's a whole freaking production. There's the rub. There's a meat thermometer. I don't want to poison my whole family. I would never put roast chicken on my top 5. No. And if you're listening and thinking, how would I roast a chicken? You're not alone. You're not alone. It's okay.
Oh, come on. I just rub some olive oil on it, salt, pepper, a few herbs. I have never used a meat thermometer in my life. I can tell if it's done by wiggling the wings and the legs and pressing on the breast. I just cut into the breast.
I
It
don't
is
know
no
if
big
that's a
deal.
thing. Wiggle the wings? What? How is that scientific at all? Is it supposed to wiggle? Like, what is the answer in here?
When it's cooked, you can just like practically pull a wing right off. And it's just different. And there's a different, like if you press the breast when the meat is cooked, it feels different.
Okay.
Seriously.
I'm just gonna move to my number 2. I got nothing. Okay. Sauteed vegetables. The leafy ones are pretty easy. You know, some hot oil, sliced garlic if you're gonna be fancy. The vegetables and salt, done in 6 minutes. Some vegetables like broccoli or green beans, you need to add, well, I mean, how we saute it anyways, or in the Chinese method. We add a little water and cook it a little longer to make them softer, but super quick, super easy, very healthy, all in one pan.
Okay, that's a good one. My number 3 would be a pasta dish. And seriously, you can make a decent pasta dish with some dried pasta and a good quality jarred sauce. No excuses.
Yeah, that's a good point about using a jarred sauce. There are lots of good prepared foods out there that don't have to be super expensive and they're perfectly healthy. What you do want to stay away from are things that are ultra processed. And you just read the labels and stick to things that have ingredients that you can actually name or read. But sometimes, a can of whole tomatoes is perfectly fine. And then you throw things in that I would say sound Italian, like oregano, basil, garlic, olive oil, olives, whatever. Delicious.
Exactly. Use shortcuts. You don't have to do everything from scratch. Remember your bar. You want to make it quick, easy, and healthy and more cost effective than delivery or restaurants. So, yeah, decent jarred sauce on hand. And when you get more ambitious, you can make your own. What's your number 3?
Following in your pasta footsteps, I would say just noodles in general. I feel like every culture has a noodle dish, either invented, borrowed, or stolen. Most of them involve boiling and then saucing, so there's really no excuse. Like even some plain noodles, and that could be your spaghetti noodles, your Asian white noodles, buckwheat noodles, whatever. You add some soy sauce and sesame oil, you're done. And, don't get,
Yep. And sesame oil.
yeah,
Sesame oil. Sesame
delicious.
oil. That is a game changer. You taught me about sesame
Yeah,
oil.
and don't get me wrong, I love a good processed, high in sodium instant noodle like the next person, but that shouldn't be an everyday thing. And you can recreate it with simple things, as Doretta mentioned, sesame oil. And you can add some spice, throw in some vegetables into chicken broth or beef broth, and you can buy the pre-made ones or add an egg, even some nori or prepared seaweed. Like access to these ingredients have never been easier. And recipes too. Like Doretta mentioned before, when you search for any recipe online, it will give you a website, video, shorts, or in an AI form. Take your pick.
So, noodles in general, great idea. I think my 4th one would be chili, with or without meat. Easy to throw together, big pot, and then you just leave it alone for a few hours to cook slowly all by itself. Slow cooker or in the oven. But it's one of those dishes that actually tastes better on the second day. It makes a great lunch, and you can freeze extra in whatever size makes sense for you. What's your number 4?
So in Chinese cooking, we have this one dish. I feel like this is probably the dish we all learned to make first. It's tomato and egg. You essentially make scrambled eggs and then you add tomatoes and cook until they're soft. You add some salt and or soy sauce and serve. And it's delicious. And you put it over rice. Okay, your last one.
I've never had that.
Well, I guess that's what I'm going to make you
Um,
next time you come over.
Okay. You've already got me a congee fan, so.
Yeah. Soupy rice.
Yep. Okay, I guess my last one actually would be a good soup. It's another standard on the lunch menu for me. I make soup almost every weekend, fall through spring, and have for many, many years. Usually it's a byproduct of whatever roast I do on the weekend. But I guess if you're not roasting a chicken, you're not going to have that
Nope.
added advantage of wonderful homemade soup.
Hashtag not.
But I also do some great soups with beans and lentils. I do love me some pulses.
Isn't chili just another type of soup?
No, it isn't. It's chili. What did you pick for your last one?
Okay.
Have you seen my chili? It is very thick. You can eat it with a fork. It is not soup.
Maybe this is a cultural a thing then, because I feel like, because like when you go to Tim Hortons, chili is on the soup menu. I just want to, highlight that. Okay. Anyways, all right. Okay.
Who are you going to trust? Who are you going to trust? Tim Hortons or me?
Gosh. Okay. All right. Soup and chili it is. Okay. So when we talked about doing 5 before we recorded the show, I really actually struggled with number 5 because I mean, I obviously did these huge buckets, and I almost gave up and said, "Oh my gosh, 4 is enough," because I feel like we covered all the things I want to cover. Then it came to me, pizza, North America's favorite food, and so I've always made my own dough, and it's really straightforward if you have yeast and you have time. But you can also actually use any bottom for pizza if you think about it, right? From store-bought dough to naan to English muffins, bagels, thick cut toast. You just have to put some sort of tomato mixture. And I've used like thinned out tomato paste, which is like still 49 cents or $1 a can. But it could also be the jarred sauce you bought for Doretta's number 3 pasta, and then you add some cheese on top. Simple.
Yeah, that's a great one. Okay, so there you have it. Our personal top 5 go-tos. Hopefully we've given you some ideas to get started or just fill in your own. Hey, share them with us if you want. Just drop us a line. But the idea for significant savings is just learn basic cooking and a few supporting ways to cut out some of the small costs that add up rapidly. Bring your own lunches to work, bring your own snacks wherever you're going, bring your own coffee, carry a water bottle. But you knew all that stuff, right? What I can tell you, based on my quick and dirty survey of social media, people who are spending a lot on delivery services, food court work lunches, bottled water, coffee, etc., reported saving hundreds of dollars a month this way.
Can I say something about bringing versus buying lunch? It just occurred to me as you were saying that there could be a significant social element here. I mean, what if everyone you eat with goes for lunch to a food court or whatever? But it was only last week that I actually went to buy my lunch on my own, so I can't imagine that I was pressured into doing this all the time. Because I've always packed a lunch. And if people are just picking up lunch, you can bring your own lunch to the food court or tell them you brought lunch. I've never felt weird about that. And they're more likely to pick up the lunch and then eat in the lunchroom with you. I guess we have to feel comfortable about that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point. I can tell you that my husband never brought a lunch ever.
Is it a guy thing?
I don't think ever would have.
Maybe it's a guy thing. I don't know.
Or maybe it's. I mean, maybe it is. I don't know. I mean,
he cooks.
He's a retired.
Yeah.
He does cook, but he's a retired lawyer. He would be in the courthouse and stuff, and they would all just break and go for lunch and go back to court. So maybe it's related to the kind of job you have, where you are, stuff like that. I don't know.
Lawyer friends, they pack a sandwich.
Who packs?
I said I have lawyer friends. They pack sandwiches.
Oh, okay. Well, mine never did. All I got. I will say that before I started working with you, most of the people I worked with did either eat out or they would go to the food court and bring something back to their desk and work through.
But aren't you lucky you met me?
I guess it's.
I mean, I'm breaking all the rules here.
Oh, I used to bring lunch. I would certainly not go off and buy a food court lunch to eat by myself unless I got kind of caught short or like a business lunch was canceled or something like that. I don't know. I guess it's really just about choices. Before we leave food, I think we should also talk about how to make the most of your grocery shopping dollars. You're shopping for a family of 4. You got 3 adults and a kid. How do you shop? What do you consider the basic economics of food shopping?
Let's make it a quick hit list. First, I'd say meal planning and flyer shopping, and I'm sticking them together for a reason. I always start with the flyers, unless there's an ingredient must-have for a certain dish, but that's 90% of my battle. And sometimes I will buy something on sale in bulk because it's something we go through quickly, or I will freeze.
Bulk buying can offer big savings, but only if you can and will use it or you have the space to store it. Otherwise, it's a waste.
Okay. I know many people play around with brand substitutions and cheap and cheerful generics. I don't know if I care. I think most things are pretty similar. If the price point is the same, I will probably grab the perceived premium brand, but honestly, it doesn't bother me either way.
Okay. I would say another one is loyalty programs, which can be helpful, but you need to read the details. It's about maximizing the impact. I suspect they work best when you concentrate your buying in one or two stores, hence loyalty. That's what they're trying to get you to do.
Oh, here's a psychological tip. Don't shop hungry. According to an American survey, you'll spend an average of $26 more per shop. And it's not just the money, because bizarrely, there are scientific reasons why you'll also tend to make poor nutrition decisions, because it has something to do with some zinc homeostasis. I don't know what that means. I will put a link in the description. If you're interested, you can read it.
Okay, what about non-food items? Cleaning and paper products, they can add a lot to your grocery bill.
To waste, paper towels, for example, they are second only to toilet tissue for paper use and can mostly be replaced by cloth, like the paper towels. I would not say use cloth for toilet paper, just to be clear.
Although I've seen a lot of people suggest bidets, but anyway.
Until it
I
floods
tried
your house.
really
No,
hard.
like I live in a condo
Yeah.
complex. You know how many bidets have flooded this building? At least 4.
Over here, you know what happened to our floor?
Yeah. Yeah. Bidets do not put in until you are sure it is appropriate for
Yeah.
your situation.
But paper towels, going back to paper towels, I tried really hard not to use them. I've been using those Swedish dishcloths for the last few years. They're super absorbent, they last a long time, and they're biodegradable, and they have the most gorgeous, bright colored prints on them. I just love them. I also always use cloth serviettes. What do you think about delivery or grocery store pickup?
I know some people who are fans, not just because it saves time, but also cuts back on impulse buying, right? Like when you're in the checkout line, you find all these other things that you didn't really want to buy and you buy them. And I think a lot of people really got into it through the pandemic and have found that it's worth continuing. Now, I've actually never done it myself. So, yeah. So, Doretta, anything you want to add as a 2-person unit?
Smaller units are different for sure. First of all, a lot of singles and couples might be living in very small spaces with minimal kitchens, fewer appliances, no freezers, that kind of thing. I think the best strategy for singles and couples boils down to 2 things. The first one is something that we've sort of referred to generally, which is don't overbuy. When I had kids at home, bulk buying made a lot of sense. I was not only feeding more mouths, I also had to travel a long way to buy groceries. And I can tell you the transition to empty nesters was a lot harder than I expected. And I still have to double check myself or I will overbuy and over prepare food.
You still do that. Who are you kidding? Every time we come to a holiday
know.
party at your house, there's food for like 3 times the amount of guests that are actually in your house.
Okay.
Busted.
I feed people. I feed
no
people.
complaints.
It's what I
no
do.
complaints. But I don't think that habit has ended. Just telling.
I sent you home. I sent you home with leftovers.
And hey, I appreciate it. It saved me on my grocery bill. Look at that. Everybody wins.
Okay. So anyway, the first one's don't overbuy. And the second one is proper food storage. First in, first out for canned and packaged goods. And know how to keep your perishables fresh. This one drives me crazy and it is so important. It's why professional kitchens actually have a staff position called the garde-manger, literally the keeper of the food. When I lived in the country, I had a huge freezer and a proper root cellar because I bought meat by the animal and potatoes and apples and onions and stuff by the bushel, all from local farms. And I kept them all winter. Needless to say, condo life is very different, but it really bothers me. People throw out like wilted veggies when almost all of them can be restored. Like, seriously, you can Google this stuff. How to keep things fresh.
Waste. There is nothing I hate as much as food waste. The average family throws away about $1,300 worth of food every year. $1,300! And a lot of it is fine. And you're right. Lots of confusion over best before dates and just overbuying and not storing properly. And I think sometimes when you're adjusting to how much your family will eat, like you have a new added member to the family, your elderly parents move in, whatever, you're allowed some spoilage in the beginning, although debatable if you ask me. But after a while, you should know exactly what will get eaten or not. And it bothers me so much when there are like literally millions of people who can't count on a full stomach every day. And we throw away food. Like, I mean, A, we probably shouldn't have purchased it because we knew it was too, or B, it's still fine. I mean, look, I respect a best before date, but seriously, sometimes it's fine after, and sometimes it spoils before. Pro tip.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely. So, what do you think about prepped food delivery then, like HelloFresh, that kind of thing?
Well, I have friends who swear by them for decreasing their waste and also introducing them to new recipes. So I think that's great, but I can't see myself using them. Like, I can prep veggies in my sleep, and I know how to do herbs, spices, and sauces, or I just make it up. And I've never really had an issue finding or using a recipe online to make something, but I get the attraction. And it's probably a significant step up from prepared food delivery. So maybe that's like kind of an intermediate step before you feel more comfortable in the kitchen, learn to cook, and then you can graduate to doing your own thing. But remember, DIY will always be cheaper. And on the topic of waste, your food waste might decrease, but think about the packaging and the delivery that adds, right? So that's food for thought, literally and figuratively. You're welcome.
Yeah. I mean, you can do prep in advance, take an hour or so in the weekend to clean and cut up the week's veggies. I do that. I even pre-cook certain veggies, especially root vegetables, and then just warm them up during the week.
Yeah, it's kind of like an extension of the garde manger rule, right? Which works for many. Like my husband would love to meal prep for the whole week and then just be done with it. I am a little bit more flexible, and I don't think I would enjoy eating the same thing every day, which he would thrive in.
Okay, enough. I could go on about food forever
Yes,
because
I
it's a
know.
serious passion for me, but I think this is enough. Drop us a line if you've got any other insights. So let's look at another dimension of necessary household expenses where savings are possible.
Where do you want to go now?
I'm going to stick with needs in the home and look at utilities. Now, we live in a country of extreme weather, cold winters, hot summers. It's really funny. I was talking to a friend of mine in England yesterday, and she just moved into a new house, and she had decided she'd made this huge mistake because she had to keep her heat on all day, which is usually not common in her part of England. But it turns out they're in the middle of a record-breaking cold snap. It was like -9, and I'm like, "It's not your house, it's
Yeah, but it's
winter."
climate change. That's gonna happen everywhere. Like, it's gonna be different.
Well,
It's gonna
yeah.
be different. And I think you're gonna
Yep,
see that reflected in the cost because things you never needed before, you're going to need now.
absolutely. Absolutely. Now, one of the suggestions that I saw repeatedly in sort of social media chats when I was kind of looking around for
Be
cost-saving
careful, that will
ideas
rot your
was
brain.
automatic. Yeah, right. Was
Perusing
automatic
social media. Okay, continue.
automatic thermostat adjustments. So they turn the heat or air conditioning on and off all by itself so that, when you're not there and all that sort of thing. I'm generally a fan of automation. So the savings there will depend on where you're keeping your heat and air conditioning now. People are reporting savings of between $50 and $150 a month, and that seemed to be pretty common. So otherwise, I would say there are all the basics. Turn off the lights, unplug appliances you aren't using, set your winter and nighttime temps lower, wear a sweater, set your summer air conditioning higher, and adapt.
Makes sense. I think the important thing here is to know what your utilities costs and play with adaptations to bring them down as much as you can, but you kind of really need to know what they are to begin with. And if you're a homeowner, research things like, thermal and solar power or your windows. There's an upfront cost to a lot of this stuff, but they pay back over time.
And remember, this is not just a money issue, it's an environmental issue. I've actually heard renters and some condo owners say that they don't care about lights, etc., because it's covered in their rent or their management fees, so they don't pay for it. Newsflash, you're paying for it, and it's irresponsible.
Yeah, for those people, I say, don't be an ass. You don't need to waste just because you can. Oh, another thing about utility is, and in fact, about all the stuff around your house, make sure you keep your furnace, air conditioner, appliances, all that stuff in good repair. These things need to be maintained. And if you don't and you replace them, they're thousands of dollars, right? So filters changed, drains flushed, all that sort of stuff. And you can look up pretty much anything on YouTube these days, but preventative maintenance can save you a ton of money.
I know somebody who last week diagnosed and replaced the water pump in their washing machine, and it cost $35.
Yeah, and from a savings of what, like 2 grand to buy a new one?
Or even to have it repaired, it costs $200 just to have a repairman show up. Never mind diagnose it and replace the part.
Yeah, and I think there's also some like personal satisfaction that you diagnosed, repaired it, and then now you can tell all your friends that you've done this great thing, as clearly you've been the recipient of. So let's go to another area where significant dollars go, and there could be a lot of significant savings. Let's look at transportation.
So definitely a need, but also an area where wants can drive the cost to crazy levels.
Yes.
Okay.
Let's start with car ownership, or maybe I should say vehicle ownership at a really high level. So I looked this up because this is not information I would readily know. According to my not so exhaustive research, 89% of Canadian households have one car vehicle, and about 37% of those have more than one. 37% for multi vehicle households may sound low. And if you live in the suburbs or in a rural area, this might sound crazy, but it varies a lot by province and by urban/rural area. And remember that 30% of Canadian households are just one person.
Okay. I still think that's a lot of vehicles, no matter how you cut it.
It is. And according to a car ownership index survey, 78% of Canadians said life would be impossible without one.
I've lived in the country and I've lived in the burbs, and that is absolutely true.
Yeah, but there is also considerable room for savings if you ask yourself some hard questions about exactly what you're paying for.
More words.
Okay, here's what I think. If you're looking for value for money and you want to minimize what you spend on transportation, you have to be really honest about needs versus wants. How much vehicle do you really need to safely meet your transportation needs? Obviously, there are a lot of factors to consider, from where you live and work to the size of your family and activities to the size and activities of your family. Do you need as many vehicles as you have? Is public transportation an option? Do you need the specific vehicles you do own? Does it need to be new? Can you make it go for another year or 3 before you have to replace it? Can you manage with something smaller, more modest?
Yep. And the thing is, sometimes you can't. Neither my daughter nor I ever wanted to own a minivan. But when I lived in the country, I had to get one by the time my son was a teenager because his sports equipment just didn't fit in our little cars anymore. You ever tried to put a bunch of teenage boys and their hockey equipment in the back of a car? And my daughter discovered an unexpected cost of having a third child. There are very few vehicles that can actually fit 3 car seats.
Yeah, I would never have thought of that, but hopefully I will never have to transport a car full of teenage boys and their hockey equipment. But that doesn't change my question. Like, how much vehicle do you really need? In those cases, that's what you needed. And if you're paying for more than that, then you need to be honest with yourself. You're not buying transportation, you're buying luxury in the form of either convenience or status.
I have never understood status cars. Just don't get it. For me, they're just about getting from A to B safely.
But honestly, you don't like driving, and you're also a terrible driver. So the society thanks you for your sacrifice. I mean, I like driving, and I like driving fast. Less so now with a full ride, but the hum of an engine is still a beautiful thing. And also why EV cars are not sexy to me.
Yeah.
So, okay, big picture. I know you're not super excited about cars. The cost savings with vehicles start with the very basic question of wants versus needs. Now, I'm not going to go into the details of buying a car, like new versus used, lease versus buy, any of that. It's complicated.
You know, we could find ourselves an expert and take a deep dive on that if our listeners are interested. Drop us a line and let us know what you think.
Yeah, I mean, sure, let us know. But I still want to make 2 points about car ownership. First, the most economic decision you can make is based on what you really need versus want. And the second is you have to take care of it. The lifespan of cars is a lot longer than it used to be if they're well maintained. Now, mine is 15 and a half years old, though I have to say the engine and some of the sensors are showing their age, right? So it happens.
Yeah, my husband's is 11 years old. It's in great shape. Drove it a lot for the first half of its life. Now it's hardly ever. But I think we should also touch on the urban dimension of travel. You and I both live downtown. And to be honest, you can manage perfectly well without a car. Sometimes, in fact, a car is more bother than it's worth. There are a lot of new condo buildings that don't even have parking. But from my extensive research on social
Yikes.
media,
Don't do it. Don't do
okay,
it.
okay, it's not all that extensive. A lot of us city folks are still racking up big transportation expenses. I'm talking parking, Ubers, taxis. I saw a lot of comments from people who said they were spending hundreds of dollars every month on short Uber rides rather than walking or taking public transit.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I can see how that could happen. I very rarely Uber or take rideshare. And only when my husband goes, "Why are you walking over 40 minutes in bad weather or needing to transfer 3 times?" And yeah, seriously, those are the conversations we have. But while rideshare is expensive, sometimes depending on where you live, it might be quicker or safer to use. Now, I would recommend that if you are going a long distance, how much of it you can do by public transit and how much of it do you need to call a rideshare. Sometimes when you mix the two, it becomes much cheaper, and some planning can save you quite a bit over time. Also, if you are with your partner or friends, everyone should check their apps because the price will vary by person. And sometimes you get this random discounts. My husband and I always do that. And so we always save a couple of bucks by ordering whoever has the cheapest ride.
I didn't know that. I mostly walk or take public transit, as I've said, and I am still more likely to use a taxi. I was always taught not to get into cars with strangers, and there's an app for that. But I actually took Ubers twice on Christmas Day. See, I can adapt.
Uh, Actually, using rideshare is safer than a taxi because you have all the information of the driver and you can actually send that to your trusted person while in the ride. I mean, in my younger days when we had to use taxis, as a young woman, we never took taxis alone. Do you know women were more at risk to being sexually assaulted in taxis, especially if they were tipsy or drunk?
Really? I have never done it before.
Yeah, that's what we were warned against. Okay, anyways, I think the point is for those of us with options, consider them all and use the most cost effective one when it makes sense. If you're driving, plan, use less fuel by getting as much done on a single trip as you can. Consider walking or cycling or taking public transportation, which saves not just on fuel and wear and tear on your vehicle, but also on parking and greenhouse gases, all of which can be crazy expensive in the long run, especially the greenhouse gases. Okay, I think that's all we should say about transportation. What's next?
I think a break. This episode has kind of gone on for quite a bit.
Whoops.
And I don't know about you, but I'm barely halfway through some of the stuff I want to say. So there's a lot to explore, especially with discretionary spending, the fun stuff, like where a lot of people get really carried away. Fashion, toys, entertainment, experiences, tons of room to get into trouble, but also lots of ways that you can buy smart and live your best life.
So we're going to stop and continue next week with Saving Hacks Part 2.
We are our very first two-parter. So everyone come back next week and we'll have a lot more ideas for you.
Okay then. Good talk. You've been listening to Not Just Money with Doretta and Lee. Click on the show's description for links to resources related to today's conversation. Our aim is to share sources that provide objective information that can help you make informed financial decisions. Please rate and review our show. If you'd like to get in touch with us, email us at notjustmoneypodcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to be featured on the show, you can send us your questions and comments by written email, audio file, or video file. Please include your name and city. This show is produced and edited by Lee, with original music by Leo Zhang cello and artwork by John Tu. Now for some legalese. Please note that the views expressed by our hosts and guests are theirs alone and should not be viewed as financial advice. This podcast is intended to be entertainment and educational in nature. Please seek additional professional support or information before acting on any podcast information. As always, good talk.